Chapter 6 Summoning Contract. Roy hadn't known about this so-called engagement before, and even after learning of it, he didn't take it seriously. If they wanted to break it off, so be it. Aside from Reiser's attitude, Revel's was quite pleasant. Roy felt no humiliation, no need to spout clichés. Truthfully, he was grateful for their visit. Their arrival had jump-started the system, absorbing enough dimension points to awaken it early. Without them, relying on the system's first method, could have taken ages to gather enough. In a world teeming with dangerous creatures, the sooner he had a system, the safer he'd be. Very well. I, Reiser Phoenix, grant you one request. I'll stake the family's honor to fulfill it, Reiser declared. More crucially, their clan owed Roy's great-great-grandfather a big debt, still unpaid. With the engagement now dissolved, Reiser, as the elder sibling, felt obliged to settle it. This way, even if word of the broken engagement spread, no one could accuse the Phoenixes of ingratitude. There'd be no grounds for attack. After all, both sides parted amicably, mutually consenting. Not Revel, but you, her brother, will grant it. Roy said, nodding approvingly. Now that's a responsible brother. My devotion to my sister isn't something a mere brat like you could understand, Reiser huffed, clearly flattered by Roy's words. It was the only moment in their entire exchange that Reiser felt Roy spoke sense. He'd been angered to death by Roy. Even Revel had begun questioning his reliability as a brother. Now, he finally felt a spark of vindication. All right, then I won't hold back, Roy said with a grin, his tone deliberately provocative. With your love for your sister, I bet you'd meet even my wildest demands. Hope you don't regret this. As long as it's within my power, I won't refuse, Reiser replied. He slid a card across the table, unconcerned about Roy making outrageous requests. What could a human demand? From his paw, human desires boiled down to wealth, power, beauty, or longevity, predictable and easily granted. For a devil, such requests were trivial. Roy glanced at the card. It resembled a business card but bore a pattern like a magic circle. What's this? He asked, feigning confusion. He suspected it was a summoning circle. It holds my contact information, Reiser said. Roy picked it up, turning it over with a puzzled look. Where's the contact info? He bit back a laugh. You're hiding that you're devils, then hand me a summoning circle. Real subtle. You'll know when the time comes, Reiser said cryptically. When you have a wish you truly want fulfilled, hold this card, and I'll find you. It's a special item crafted by the Phoenix clan, unlike anything you're used to. Reiser avoided mentioning the summoning circle, cloaking it in mystery. In his mind, he pictured Roy using it someday. He'd descend in the most dramatic, awe-inspiring way, stunning this disrespectful brat. Then he'd mock Roy, making him realize how insignificant he was and how foolish his taunts were. Imagining it, Reiser felt a surge of glee, barely suppressing a smirk. Take this card and return our family's crest. It's the token our elders exchanged, Reiser said. Roy blinked. Huh. Revel took out a red badge, engraved with a vivid firebird, like a divine creature reborn from ashes. Roy sifted through his memories, finally locating details about the crest buried deep. It wasn't at his current place but stored at his family's old estate as a keepsake. Hold on a sec, Roy said, making a quick call to have it delivered. This is it. Sensing the familiar aura, Reiser and Revel confirmed the crest and took it from Roy. With the engagement dissolved and the crest reclaimed, their mission was complete. We'll take our leave, Revel said, offering a graceful curtsy before preparing to depart with Reiser. System, replicate Hellfire. Consuming 50,000 dimension points. Hellfire replicated successfully. Would the host like to activate it? The system asked. Not yet. He'd wait until the Phoenix siblings were gone. Who knew what might happen when activating it? If they noticed anything odd, it could spell trouble. Brat, you're smarter than you look, Reiser said smugly before leaving. Think of a wish soon. I'm looking forward to our next meeting. Same here, Roy replied, flashing a cryptic smile. HMPH. Reiser snorted, secretly hoping Roy wouldn't faint from shock when the time came. Let's go, Revel. The country's air is too stifling. I can't stand it. They'd find a secluded spot to teleport back to the underworld. Roy waited until they were completely gone before diving back into the system. He looked up to inspect Hellfire. Chapter 7 Hellfire. Replicated ability, Hellfire. Quality, C. Effects. 1. Has a healing effect. If the host is injured, Hellfire can heal to a certain extent. 2. Consume demonic power, magic power, vitality to transform the body into flames, rendering some external physical attacks ineffective. 3. Hellfire can be used as a means of attack. Closing square bracket. Roy's eyes lit up as he glanced at the effects. Not bad at all, he murmured. Hellfire was essentially a subset of the Phoenix clan's innate abilities. But for its cost, it was a steal. All 3 effects, attack, defense, and healing, were exceptional. Most importantly, they were versatile, covering every key aspect of survival. Guess I've upgraded from a mob to a weak fighter, Roy said with a self-deprecating smirk. With this, he had a baseline for self-defense. No longer would he be helpless against minor threats. Activate it. A burst of flames erupted from his body, filling the room with searing heat. With a thought, Roy reined in the blaze, condensing it into his right hand. Feels good, he said, grinning. Controlling the Hellfire was effortless, as if it were an extension of himself. From his memories, mastering powers, like those of supernatural creatures, depends if you're born with it, but the system bypassed all that. The Hellfire felt akin to a sacred gear. Roy opened the panel again to check his stats. Opening square bracket. Host, Roy Flott. Race, human. Level, 10, peak human. Replicated ability, Hellfire, C. Replicated items, none. Dimension points, 4,323. Closing square bracket. Level 10, peak human. Wonder how I'd fare against a low-class devil. Unlike those anime protagonists, he felt no sudden surge of power. Beyond the Hellfire, his physique remained at human limit. Low-class devils, by contrast, far surpassed this limits. Soon, Roy tested its effects. He grabbed a steel spoon from the kitchen, the flames melted it into a puddle effortlessly. Slicing his palm lightly with a knife, he watched a small flame seal the wound instantly. When he shifted his body into a flame-like state, a knife passed through him harmlessly, as if cutting through fire itself. Drains me, though, Roy noted, panting slightly after testing all 3 effects. His breathing grew uneven, like he'd sprinted a few hundred meters. Gotta build up my base strength, he resolved. Without a solid foundation, the Hellfire was like a child wielding a sacred gear, powerful, but sloppy, unable to maximize its potential. After familiarizing himself with the flames, Roy made a call. Hey, Jason, check if there's a Kuo town in Japan. If so, I want to transfer to the academy there, he instructed. On the other end was his family's butler, an aide left by Roy's late parents. Roy was a rich orphan with a hefty inheritance waiting post-graduation. In a world crawling with mystery, wealth meant little against such threats. But for tasks like this, it was a godsend. The academy's details weren't hard to dig up. Soon, Roy received a report, including a list of notable students at Kuo Academy. Rias should be starting her 3rd year after summer break. Story hasn't kicked off yet, he deduced, sifting through his DxD knowledge. At the anime's start, Issei was a 2nd year, while Rias and her peerage were 3rd years. Except Kaneko and Gasper. This was likely the final summer before the events. Perfect timing to insert himself into the story. Crucially, Issei shouldn't have awakened his sacred gear. Right now, he was just a powerless pervert. Boosted gear, Roy muttered. As a Longinus made by the biblical god, the boosted gear offered god-tier power. If Roy could claim it, his strength would skyrocket. It was arguably the easiest Longinus to target. Others were either unaccounted for or held by formidable owners. The boosted gear, though, was within reach. Roy estimated replicating the boosted gear via the system would cost a fortune in dimension points. But if he could seize it directly from Issei, he'd save those points for other uses. Rias and her peerage won't be able to help, so I'll need the fallen angels, Roy planned. With time before the story began, he had ample opportunity to prepare. Chapter 8 Kuo Academy. Roy moved quickly. After Jason investigated details about Kuo Town and Kuo Academy, he booked a flight the same day. Spending a day tying up loose ends, Roy boarded a plane from the UK to Kuo Town, Japan, the next morning. Still got a lot on my plate, he muttered. Exiting the airport, he headed to a hotel. After stowing his luggage, he collapsed onto the bed, exhaustion etched on his face. Money wasn't an issue, but handling logistics from the UK to Japan wasn't as seamless as it seems. It was summer break, so Kuo Academy's admission process would likely take weeks. Plus, since he planned to settle here, he'd need to buy a house and navigate a slew of paperwork. All these tasks piled up into a headache. Forget it. I'll hire someone to deal with this, Roy decided. Now in Kuo town, he had no interest in wasting time on chores. He had plenty of money. And a system. No need to stress. On his first day, Roy stayed in. After dinner at the hotel and a shower, he crashed early. The next morning, he contacted an agency specializing in handling errands, outlined his needs, paid a deposit, and set out to explore. Early in the story, two key locations mattered: Kuo Academy and the abandoned church in the suburbs. Roy's first stop was Kuo Academy. He also hoped to get lucky, maybe bump into a main character and absorb some dimension points. Taking a taxi, he arrived at the school. During summer break, Kuo Academy was empty. Through the iron fence, Roy occasionally spotted a few students passing by. He wanted to slip inside for a look, but the guards stopped him. No school ID, no entry. Disappointed, Roy lingered. With his current strength, the abandoned church was too risky. It was the fallen angel's base, housing a stray exorcist and several of their kind. Barging in could be deadly. "Hello, what are you doing by the gate? You seem troubled," a voice called out. A blond boy approached, curiosity in his eyes. His striking look stood out, easily marking him as a heartthrob in any crowd. Around Roy's age, he outshone TV idols by a mile. He carried a long cloth bag slung over his shoulder, likely a kendo case. The boy radiated a sporty, sunny vibe. Kendo was big among Japanese students, so it fit. "Hey, you a student here?" Roy asked, snapping out of his thoughts. "I am," the boy nodded. "I'm Roy Flott, a transfer student. I'll be starting at Kuo Academy this semester," Roy said, smiling and extending his right hand. "Oh." The boy returned the gesture, shaking Roy's hand politely. "Congratulations, host. 51,230 dimension points absorbed." The system's prompt thrilled Roy. This had to be Yuto Kiba. Seeing a 2D character in the flesh was jarring. Roy had felt a spark of recognition but wasn't sure until the system confirmed it. As expected of a main characters. The points from Kiba alone rivaled what he'd got. N from both Phoenix siblings combined. "I'm Yuto Kiba, second year at Kuo Academy," Kiba introduced himself. "Your face doesn't look Asian. From the West, maybe?" "Yup, I'm from UK," Roy nodded. "Your Japanese is flawless. I'd never have guessed you weren't local," Kiba said, impressed. Most foreigners carried an accent, but Roy's speech was indistinguishable from a native's. If not for his face, Kiba wouldn't have clocked him as an outsider. Though, Roy's language skills weren't natural. After landing, he'd spent 1,000 dimension points to replicate fluent Japanese. Pricey, but worth it. Living in Japan long-term demanded it. His actual Japanese was limited to listening, picked up from watching unsubtitled anime and other videos. Speaking was beyond him. "Impressive," Kiba said. "It's just what I had to do," Roy replied, a bit embarrassed by Kiba's words. Working hard for a goal and nailing it. That's rare. No wonder he's Kuo's Prince Charming, Roy thought. If he had a game like HUD, he'd bet favorability +10 was flashing over his head. "I admire people like you," Kiba said. Realizing his tone might have been too serious, he flashed a gentle smile. "By the way, I saw you lingering by the gate earlier. Something up?" Kiba asked, circling back. "I'll be joining Kuo Academy after summer vacation, so I figured I'd check out the school." Before, Roy shrugged lightly. "But the guards won't let me in, so I was about to head out." Kuo Academy stays closed to outsiders, even during holidays. Some students come for club activities, so only those with school IDs get in, Kiba explained with a smile. "Guess I'll wait till term starts," Roy sighed. Meeting Kiba was a pretty lucky. He'd hoped to run into a main characters but hadn't counted on it. This was pure chance. Kiba glanced at his phone to check the time, then smiled. "I've got some time. If you're up for it, I can show you around." "Seriously?" Roy's eyes lit up. Thanks a ton. No big deal. We'll be classmates soon enough, Kiba said warmly. With Roy's agreement, Kiba spoke briefly to the guard, who nodded. Roy signed in at the gate, received a visitor's pass, and followed Kiba into the academy. The campus was sprawling. Beyond the modern facilities, an abandoned older section still fell within its grounds. To an outsider, it just screamed wealth, the kind of private school with deep-pocketed backers. Only those in the know would suspect its ties to the supernatural. It's exactly the school I pictured. Tons of facilities. You guys must have a blast here, Roy said after Kiba showed him most of the campus. Way more fun than back home. What's your school like? Kiba asked. Focused on grades over everything. Extracurriculars take a backseat, so it's mostly textbooks all day, Roy said with a chuckle. I've heard you guys are exam machines, Kiba nodded. Your grades must be solid, Roy. Nah, it's just survival, Roy joked. Thanks to inheriting this body's memories, high school knowledge he'd long forgotten was at his fingertips. Keep that up, and entrance exams will be a breeze, Kiba said. Here, lots of folks don't buckle down until their final year. By then, the pressure's brutal. Sounds rough, Roy said, smirking. With your grades, you'll fit right in. Kiba, you're the one who's got it made. Bet you're Kuo's Prince Charming, huh? I saw a few girls eyeing you on the way, Roy teased. You're pulling my leg, Kiba said, his shy smile betraying a hint of embarrassment. By the way, Kuo's got a lot of international students. Spotted a bunch just now, Roy remarked casually. Yeah, Kiba nodded. The school's board has overseas ties, so we get more foreign students. First time I've heard of one from the UK, though, Kiba added, curious. Kuo's not exactly a famous school in Japan. Why pick it? Well, it's because of someone, Roy said, spinning a prepared excuse. Someone. Kiba's interest peaked. Yup, Roy nodded. I came to Japan on a whim, just traveling, planning to head back after a bit. And then, Kiba leaned in. Saw a photo of a girl, Roy said, faking a bashful grin. Did some digging and found out she's at Kuo Academy. So, I transferred. No way, Kiba said, surprised but not mocking. Kiba admired Roy's guts to chase a crush across borders. Yeah, that's the deal. Only know her name, Sauna Shitori. Supposedly a total stunner. That's about it, Roy said, sighing dramatically before perking up. But once I'm enrolled, I'll have plenty of chances to get to know her. Who'd you say? Kiba's expression turned odd. Sauna Shitori. You don't know her, Roy said, playing dumb. A beauty like that's gotta be famous here. Not surprised you've heard of her. I do know her, Kiba said, at a loss for words. Is President's charm so strong it's reached a foreigner? Really? What's she like at school? Roy asked, eyes gleaming with mock anticipation. Well, Kiba hesitated, unsure how to respond. Under Roy's curious questioning, Kiba began to talk about Sauna. Of course, he only described her as a human student to Roy. Naturally, he couldn't reveal her life as a devil. That was a world ordinary humans couldn't touch. I didn't expect Sauna to be so impressive. She must have tons of admirers at school, Roy said with a wry, helpless smile after hearing Kiba's explanation. It was the kind of expression a boy might show when realizing how extraordinary the girl he likes is, full of admiration tinged with self-doubt. She's definitely very popular, Kiba agreed with a nod. Sauna is the idol of many underclassmen. Nearly half the school respects her, and there's even a group of girls who admire her leadership. That's incredible. She's practically a campus icon, Roy said, sounding a bit discouraged. Does she have a boyfriend? Do I even have a chance? Kiba gave an awkward chuckle, unsure how to respond. Sona Citri, the heiress of the Citri clan, existed in a completely different world from ordinary humans. No matter how hard Roy tried, catching up to her seemed impossible. Roy's feelings, it seemed, were destined to remain unrequited. Don't give up. He liked Roy and didn't want to discourage him outright. Instead, he offered vague encouragement, hoping Roy would eventually move on after realizing his efforts wouldn't bear fruit. Thanks for the support, Roy said with a grin. If Sauna ever becomes my girlfriend, I'll owe you a huge thank you gift. Kiba laughed, though his smile felt a bit forced. He didn't know how to respond to Roy's optimism. Sorry, Roy, I'm running out of time, Kiba said, glancing at his watch. I need to do club activities, so I can't show you around anymore. No worries, we've covered most of the school already, Roy replied with a grateful smile. Thanks for spending so much time guiding me. After exchanging polite farewells, they swapped contact information. Roy insisted he'd treat Yuto to a meal sometime, and Yuto offered to play host and show Roy around Kuo town to help him get familiar with the area. I'll head out now. I'm about done too. I've seen everything I wanted to check out. I'll come back to get more familiar once school starts, Roy replied. Kiba escorted Roy to the school gate before turning toward the old schoolhouse. Watching Kiba's retreating figure, Roy silently looked at the system. Yuto Kiba. Full replication, 310,100 dimensional points. Sacred gear, sword birth 150,000 dimensional points. Kendo talent, 100,000 dimensional points. Magic conversion, 20,000 dimensional points. Evil pieces knight 10,000 dimensional points. Middle class demonic power, 30,000 dimensional points. Kuo Academy uniform, 100 dimensional points. As expected of main characters. While not as powerful as the Phoenix siblings, who appeared as minor antagonists, Kiba's dimensional points were impressive. Roy wasn't particularly interested in sword birth. His true target was boosted gear. However, Kiba's kendo talent was something Roy desperately wanted. It would quickly enhance his close combat skills and compensate for his weaknesses. The problem was his lack of dimensional points. Roy checked the points and, after a moment of thought, instructed the system. Replicate Yuto Kiba's middle-class demonic power. He could save up more points and replicate the demonic power of a high class later, which would be more cost-effective. But right now, saving points wasn't as practical as boosting his strength. Compared to abstract dimensional point numbers, immediate power growth was far more valuable. Consuming 30,000 dimensional points. Middle-class demonic power has been replicated. Would the host like to use it now? Not yet, Roy replied, shaking his head. He needed a quiet place to use it. Who knew if using middle-class demonic power would cause a commotion? Making a scene in public would only expose him. For now, Roy had no intention of revealing his abilities, not until he acquired the boosted gear. It was better to lay low and develop his strength quietly. Leaving Kuo Academy, Roy headed back to the hotel. The old schoolhouse exuded an air of history, its architecture reminiscent of the previous century. Though students had moved to the new building, this one wasn't abandoned. Spare classrooms served as activity rooms for certain clubs, and every corner was kept spotlessly clean. Still, the atmosphere felt dim. For some reason, the building's design didn't allow much sunlight, leaving it perpetually shadowed. In a room marked, Occult Research Club, Kiba pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, with heavy curtains drawn, but its lavish decor evoked a medieval noble's parlor. 3 people were already inside. A girl with long crimson hair sat on the edge of a desk. Another girl with long black hair tied in a ponytail was pouring tea for her. A petite girl with short silver hair sat on a central sofa, nibbling snacks with a blank expression. Sorry, President, I'm a bit late, Yuto said apologetically as he entered.